Hello neighbors, it's Brad here from eTrailer, and today I have Greg from GSP Axles. We're going to be breaking down some of the axles that you guys have, some of the different lines. So these are predominantly going to be for handlebar and side-by-sides, and why would someone need a replacement axle for those, or why are they being replaced quite often?
So you've got your normal wear and tear, so that'll happen at times. But then you also have those oops moments where the vehicle may roll and come down too hard. You may run over something, poke a hole in the boot, and then start getting contamination into the joint on that as well, or just running over something or torquing it out. So those are the three main things that happen.
Which makes sense with most side-by-sides. I mean, these are toys. They're going out, they're getting abused, locking diffs, hitting air, all that. And the axles are what transfer the power. So obviously you got to find the weak link. And so some of those OEM axles, once they go out, you're going to obviously need to replace it. And so you guys offer axles that are a little bit more robust. But before getting into that, how would someone know if their axle is on the way out?
Well, there are a few different ways to know. One of them, you start hearing a clicking noise in the steering, or you get a vibration that you're not used to in that, or if you start seeing grease in your wheel, it's another telltale sign.
And if one side starts kind of going out, is the other side not far behind generally?
Most of the time, you can just replace them one at a time. If it's due to age and just normal wear and tear, I would recommend replacing both. But if it's just something that you've damaged, you can get away with just replacing the one.
Okay, and then as far as your guys' lines, will you break down what each of them are and what they kind of offer over the OEM axle?
Well, you've got our regular OE replacement axle. So, like you said, it's a little more robust, a few more bellows in the boot, so you can do a little bit more turning. It's got a little more play in it, so that when you do bounce around a little bit, it's going to hold up on there. You also have our extended axles, which are also long travel axles. A lot of people like to put those on their buggies because it gives them a little more stability on there. So that's available. And then you've got the heavy duty axles, which have a little bit more robust joint in them. It's also made with 4340 steel, so it's a little sturdier. So when you're really out riding hard on those, that's what I would recommend that you use as a replacement.
So as far as rock crawling or things along those lines are really hitting jumps, looking at those HD ones are going to be kind of what you're looking for?
Absolutely, yeah. You'll want to use those because they will withstand a little bit more of the up and down and the bouncing around and that.
Now, there's tons of makes of side-by-sides and handlebars. I mean, just they keep growing and growing. So obviously they're all going to be specific to those models. And to determine which one's right for your vehicle, you can use our fit guide on etrailer.com. But if you're, out in the wild and maybe don't have internet, where would you figure out, or how do you determine what axle you have and how to get a replacement?
Well, obviously, if you can't go to the etrailer.com website, we can take a look at the axle itself, and that will help you out. So each axle, whether it's OE or a replacement unit, usually will have a number etched into the center shaft. So you can use the number that's on the center shaft, and we can cross-reference that. They can get a hold of one of the customer service folks to help them out with that. The other thing that they may want to look at, if that's not there, is we can take a look at the overall length of the axle. And then the fun part is if they have to count splines. So I would recommend, maybe using nail polish or a little paint marker, mark one of the splines on there, count all the splines on the inner, count all the splines on the outer, and then between that and the length, we can also determine which unit they need.
So replacing an OEM axle with the GSP means, cool, you're back on the road, but there's also some benefits to your guys' axles over the OEMs.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a few more bellows in the boot so that you can turn a little bit tighter and you don't have to worry too much about that. But one of the other benefits is there's a little bit of play in it once you install it. And what that helps with is bouncing around and going through all of that. It gives it a little bit of flexibility. So having a little bit of play in that is actually a good thing. Whereas sometimes with parts, play is not good. This is one of those where a little bit of it is good, and it will help absorb some of that shock as they're bouncing over the rocks, trees, rough terrain.
You mentioned that there's extra bellows in the boots, and that's where I've found a lot of times my axles were fine until the boot tears and then grease comes out of it, but having those extra bellows really accounts for a lot more angle, right?
Absolutely, it accounts for a lot more angle, and then again, the race and the cage inside with the bearings in the whole joint are actually a little bit sturdier as well, so that will help withstand some of the torque. So you've got the turn and the torque both that are covered.
Now, I've replaced a ton of axles on passenger vehicles. I would assume it's very similar to that on a ATV, side by side, any of those, correct?
It's actually a little bit easier because you've got easier access to the axle itself on the vehicle, on the buggy. It's real simple. You take the parts off that are around it, you pull it out, you plug in the replacement, put the parts back on, and you're good. The two key things, you're going to want to strap up some of that so that it doesn't get overly drooped, and you're going to want to make sure you wire up the caliper when you take the brake caliper off so it's not pulling on the brake line. But other than that, it's a very simple replacement. They can go to etrailer.com, buy the replacement, and they can take a look at the video and they can see, hey, you know what, I can do this.
And then as far as any extraneous stuff, like do you need any extra grease, or is there anything else that they would need to get this installed properly?
All they're going to need are the tools because we supply brand new axle nuts, washers, cotter pin for it as well. They don't need any grease or anything special other than just the tools to remove and replace.
Excellent. So if you have a side-by-side or a handlebar out there and you're out riding and you notice that your axles might be on the way out, this is a fantastic way to not only replace but upgrade in the process. And generally it comes at a price point that's going to be better than just getting OEM parts.
Absolutely, and then if they do the replacement themselves, they're not having to pay somebody else to do the labor for something that is not a difficult replacement.
Sounds great. Well, definitely a great option for any of you out there that are looking to get some axles replaced, and that way you can get out and play again. So a huge thanks to Greg from GSP Axles for taking the time to kind of break down their line of axles for side-by-sides, handlebars, and XTVs overall. So thank you very much, Greg.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.